Hey, welcome everybody back to the Firemanship Podcast brought to you by West Coast Offense. With me today, Colin, Kelley, Mark Carcamo. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning, morning.
Hey,
New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Thought we
New
talked.
year, new me. New year, new me.
Hey, I was going to say something. Think about this, how we've chronologically hit some of these podcasts. We started off kind of talking about firemanship, moved into apparatus spec, went into SOGs, got into spotting. We're kind of moving towards the fire building with all of these podcasts. And kind of want to talk about something that we are pretty familiar with, and that would be lightweight roof operations. What do you guys think about? When you're starting to think about lightweight roof operations, what topic comes to mind first that you want to talk about?
I yield to the senior man.
Uh, we had a little conversation. We came on this morning, and I think one of the things that we realize and what we are trying to convey, especially when we go out and teach our ventilation techniques, was you try to keep your playbook to a minimum whenever possible, because that only equals more success for you as an operator that's on that saw, but as well as for people. I think the entire country is kind of in the position of these guys are having to get assigned, hired, or mandatoried over, and you get a guy that may have not be familiar with anything you do. If you can keep your playbook down to a minimum and try to stick to the script as much as possible with some small adaptations within that realm, that's only going to help the people that work around you, because there's not 1,000 plays that this guy's going to try to pull up to go, what is he going to do on this roof? And we'll get into the laddering aspect of that at another time. However, the best thing about it for me is these guys have an expectation, a reasonable expectation of how I'm going to cut this roof, and I'm going to try to stick to that script as much as possible, with a few exceptions. And we're going to default to Colin on that, because that's the majority of what they deal with, probably a 90-10 compared to, I would say, LA, which is, obviously having more and more lightweight systems built as they destroy old stuff or knock it down and bring new stuff in. And I'm sure that's the same thing that goes on with Utah. And I would say it for the whole country. If you don't have it in your district, it's coming. So start preparing for it now. And that's basically what I got to say.
And Mark brings up a good point. I know some companies that, we got 2 SOGs for roof operations. Is it double ground ladder or is it an aerial ladder? That's kind of, that's hard. We do the same thing. We do the same operation, and I've met with or talked with or been contacted by company officers who are developing SOGs or trying to implement SOGs. And I've seen some companies that got like 6 SOGs, one for every ground ladder length. And I just think, okay. And when I worked there, these guys are confused to holy hell as to who's doing what, because things change based off ground ladder length. 35 obviously is more manpower dependent than a 24, 16, 20, whatever. And again, I'm just echoing Mark's sentiment, man. You need to limit your SOGs, your plays, to the least amount necessary. It's not going to answer every fire ground question or challenge you face. That's where the firemanship and skill set come into. But having that SOG as a starting point, which was that other show, I'm not going to get into that too much, is minimizing and having functional vetted SOGs. That's been a godsend for us, for my career. Yeah. The the history of this. So recently we just read or saw another thing on the topic of lightweight roof operations. And I'm just going to say this to the listeners: firemen, you need to vet. You need to take a deeper dive into who you're getting your information from with regard to the specific topic. No one fire department, no one fireman is the end all be all ace at every single thing on the fire ground. I'm sorry. That's the ugly truth that I'll be humble enough to say. My agency does not do everything right. Nobody does. Nobody. I don't care what the 4 letters are. And we need to, but there are things they do very well per agency. And as a firefighter, young firefighter, trying to go after knowledge, information, develop a skill set, you need to be critical on who you're getting your information from when it has regarding that specific topic. And I'll just leave it at that. There's been such an oversimplification or a downplaying or a dumbing down, I'll even say, of lightweight roof ops or roof ops as a whole by some folks, that not only is it, in my opinion, arrogant, it's unscrupulous, and it's unsafe. You are putting firemen who look up to you in harm's way unnecessarily, because they're going to take what certain people say. These legends, by the way, that's a bullshit word, legend. You call yourself a legend, stay away from me. And what's a legend? A legend. You always hear about we hear younger guys come on the job. Man, that guy's a legend in my job. Why is he a legend? Because you're no longer operating like you're supposed to be?
Mm-hmm.
That's legendary to you? Because they were more intelligently aggressive than you currently are? Well, you got to ask yourself, why? Why are you not at that standard? Why is legendary become the term when you're not operating like that person, that senior person did? To me, that's not legendary. That means you have let your standard and our operations degrade. So now it's legendary. But anyways, I'm getting on a tangent. That shit pisses me off. But be careful who you're getting your information. And because of that, it's motivated us to put out some information.
Yeah. So do we maybe want to start off, I don't know what you guys think, talking about what our basic roof op looks like and how that would look like? Would it change or would it not change on a lightweight roof compared to a different roof? What is a basic roof op when we were out teaching? What did that look like?
Well, let's set the stage, right? So Mark worked in a district of Los Angeles, very old, over 100-year-old buildings, right? That, like you said in the opening, predominantly legacy / conventional construction was his norm. I work in Las Vegas, and it's the opposite. That is definitely the minority of construction in my districts, in my department, in this valley. Mm-hmm. And as a young fireman trying to develop that, because we were going to the roof, but for the wrong reasons. We were going to the roof when we were suspecting an attic fire. Well, let's think about that. So you're going to send us to the roof of a more than likely lightweight. And when I say lightweight, it ain't light. It's pre-engineered. That's the synonym, pre-engineered construction. Mm-hmm. So you're going to send us up on this pre-engineered truss or I-joist system because now you suspect 10 minutes later, fire has entered the truss space and attacking that system. So now you want me up there? You didn't want me up there to vent for the lives of firefighters attacking the fire, searching the building. You want me up there now for, let's bypass L. Now we're at the I and the P, right? Let's stabilize the incident and conserve power. Now you want me up there. Well, it didn't make sense. It wasn't safe. It wasn't intelligent. We have moved so far away from that, but I started looking for information on this and just, I'm not going to get into history, but when I met Mark and his op, and he talked to me about his SOG and how they do things, I took that and I applied it to my roofs. Uh-huh. And I didn't know shit. I was a 4-year fireman when I met Mark, and maybe 3-year fireman. And it's quickly showed itself to be extremely effective for what I'm going on. Because I had, I'll go ahead and say it, man. These guys back east going on top of these, conventional / legacy style constructed building. They're blessed. They're blessed because they have time. Don't get me wrong. I know they fail too. I know that. But if you watch any video of any large fire departments, in older cities, they have all the time in the world, and rarely do you see the roof collapse. Mm-hmm. So you got time. We don't have time. So I took his operation and I started applying it to my roofs, and man, that shit, it was gold. It was gold. And when I say gold in terms of my life safety on that roof while still being able to be effective for that engine company. It was gold. It's like, oh man, this shit works. But you have to apply it. You have to apply it in a disciplined way. That's the history of kind of where this whole thing came from for me.
So, Mark, for you, like that's where the operation comes from. So when you were on the job, who's running that roof, I guess? Who's calling that roof op? Who's in charge of that roof op?
Well, I mean, if you step back and go, hey, what did I learn as a young fireman that put me in a spot where I started to develop things that I thought, oh, I'll never have that happen to me because I'm not going to screw the guys I did. I was a young fireman. I was in South Central Los Angeles, for the most part, legacy construction, right, including the single families, which predominant down there, but they're busy. You're pulling hose, you're cutting holes, you're forcing entry, and you get up there. And my first day on, and he was one of the legends of the job, right? As Colin was talking about earlier. And of course, you're a fucking starry-eyed young guy, and I'm looking at this guy, never even met him for the first 2 weeks, and then you meet him, and it's like, it was interesting to me, right? Because I didn't know anything about the fire service. I only knew I needed a job, and they allowed me to come on, and best thing that happened to me in the world. However, get up on my first rope with the guy, and he throws 3 dices in there and tells me, pull it. Okay, fuck, I can do that. Hell yeah, I can do that. Until I couldn't do that, because it ended up being plywood, and it was like, God, man. And I had that happen to me numerous times in my young career, 2, 3, 4 years. I waited a long time to promote to the position of apparatus operator. And it was because I liked being a fireman. However, when new guys would come in that promoted in the position that I eventually attained, I would have a long conversation with hey, we're cutting 4 sides, right? Why are we doing that? You're only as good as your pullers. And if you wear those guys out, you screw them. You fucking screw them. So that along came that didn't matter what I was cutting. I'm cutting 4 sides. What does that transfer to? It transfers to that plywooded roof, right? You can have conventional construction, but have a plywood roof. And I would ask the question that I throw out to guys all the time: is that now lightweight? Mm-hmm. That's something for these younger people to actually realize. Know what the minimum thickness of that system, that decking that they put down, and then ask yourself, well, it's not just 1x6 tongue and groove or 1x6. It's not that thing anymore. It's plywood, and we already know what happens with that stuff. However, getting back to that, I came up with the thing. Hey, if I ever become an AO, I'm gonna cut 4 sides, and that way I can keep my people fresher, quote unquote, and ready to work, and not turn around and look at me and go, hey, give me the saw, and you step in here and do this hard work with a 2 or 3 sided cut. So that's how it kind of evolved for me. And then, not that I was thinking lightweight at the time, but like Colin said, you put it on this lightweight system, wooden I-beam, open web, panelized, you can still use that same cutting sequence, and you have to cut 4 sides still. So it's easy to adapt it to a different type of roof, for lack of something better. The oddball for us would be that Somerville roof in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm.
Mark,
if they're still
talk about also, like, in your agency, you're kind of an outlier in terms of that inspection cut, and why you started doing that, where that came from, why you were taught that lesson, or how do you learn that? Because that in and of itself is the critical starting point for me on my pre-engineered stuff. Identifying what it is and which way it's going is everything for me from starting point.
Yeah, I would say for the safety, again, remember, as that apparatus operator, especially now that I see videos of what goes on within my own agency, and that is they're having these cabin 2 sit on the rig. So I'm losing a set of eyes instantly, right? Where I go, I was dependent upon my guy to come up and be my safety officer. That's what my understanding of this truck captain is he's the sheep herder, and we're the sheep. I want that guy up there as soon as I can to protect me from that wolf, right? And that is, okay, I get up there and I say, hey, I'm undressing this roof. And the reason I did it again was, what I want to know, I'm not smart enough. Mark Carcamo is not smart enough to get on a roof and go, flat roof, hey, and that's where the Raptors are running. I'm just not that smart. So for me, it's creature of habit. When I need to learn something, it's by doing it over and over and over. It's touches. And who does it hurt? By me walking out of the path of travel and sinking this small 6x6x6 hole to gain the knowledge. The amount of knowledge I gain by a 10-second hole will trump the guy that's going to go out there and cut for 3 feet and go, oh shit, I'm going to turn 90 degrees, and now that's going to be one of my dices. The first thing that pops in my mind is safety factor now, because I'm starting and stopping at a rafter so that when my guys are on the perimeter making their pulls, at least they're on a structural member. That's the first thought process. The second process is, hey, what else does that thing do? Type and thickness of comp. am I going to have to score this thing first in a large rectangle and get rid of the clump so that I can feel the structural members when I'm rolling? Okay, so that's the second thing is, hey, type and thickness of decking. I want to know if it's plywood. I'm on a conventional roof, but I've got plywood on here. Did it just turn into a lightweight to me? On burn time, it did, right? With flame impingement on it, I just created a lightweight roof. Third thing is, hey, rafter size, type, and direction. Where are they going? Which way is it? Most important thing, right? Because if you're out there in the middle of shit and you can't see like the fire Colin recently had, and it's like, you're dependent on feel. That's all feel now. And then the last thing is, and the most important thing is, what are the conditions where I got up and cut this inspection hole? If there's fire there, I just pretty much made it to, hey, I'm cutting and getting off, and I better relay that these guys were thinking they're going to get this huge relief, because go back to the uninvolved to involved whenever possible. And that's how that came about for me, was just like, I'm not smart enough to guess which way rafters run. So I'm not going to take that out for chance and just go, when I get out there, and that doesn't mean they can't change direction. Don't get me wrong. I understand that.
That was my statement, Mark, because you hear those guys that their argument is, well, you don't always know when they're going to change. What do you say to that?
Well, I say to that is
Your experience.
Yeah, King's X is, guess what? If I'm on an arch truss, I'm a bridge truss, I'm on gable truss, that's a guarantee. I know it. They're not changing. Flat roof, absolutely. And I saw it in my district where you did an inspection hole 6 feet off the wall, the bearing wall, to keep it out of the path of travel, and the rafters are going one way, and you get out over this thing. I saw it happen on a fire, and guys cutting. It's like, no, it's not working that way. It's not. And guess what? They changed directions. So the front, probably quarter of the building one direction, the back quarter the exact same direction, and then the field switched 90 degrees on them.
Mm-hmm.
Why they did that, I don't know. I'm not a construction expert. However, the King's X of being the saw operator is cutting inspection holes, curve cuts, smoke indicators. That's at that guy's discretion, right? And I say that, it's like, be strong enough of a person that when you're in charge to go, don't know what I don't know. Let me think something in here. And if I would say, if I had that thing, because I'm not that bright, if I had stuck my saw in thinking, hey, I found my construction back there and I got out here and it didn't make sense to me, you bet your sweet ass I'm going to pop another inspection hole in there and go, wait a second, do I need to grab here and see what happened? I didn't hit anything. Why not use that line as the first part of your inspection hole and then do the other 2 cuts, just to satisfy that question mark that you have in your head? And as an operator, you got to be smart enough to go, how do I adjust? What's plan B here? And you only got a plan A. Go ahead.
No, and what would you say? I mean, your district was, I always tell you, man, like, it's got to be one of the most diverse districts in the country. And the fires you went to. I mean, we talked about this. You literally got to go to every kind of fucking building, pardon my language. But with that said, what percentage of time did that happen to where you're
that only happened to me at one fire
in 30 years?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And I say that once I got to 11, that's the only time I saw it, but it did happen, right?
And there's giveaways, right? In general, there's giveaways. You have change of direction on the roof. You got an add-on. I mean, there's obviously these things where we should probably do another.
I would say what this thing didn't present, though, is it was a center hall, and it did that. And it was just, I mean, I don't know, did they go, hey, because of the wall? And there was no,
it was a one-off. It was an oddity.
It was an oddity. It was an absolute oddity. However, the fire service is all about expecting the unexpected, right? And what do you do to adjust to that when you get the unexpected? What's your plan B? And you can see, not just on that thing, for me, it was kind of an eye-opener, but when you look at the fire service as a whole, and the overarching is, you see these companies that get in these positions, and I'll say it on everything, is when it's not going correct, don't double down on fucking stupid, right? And I think I told both you guys, and Cameron turned me onto a podcast, and it was Joe Castro, an LA City Fire Chief, and he's talking to another guy named Castros, and I think he's from whatever, Greece or wherever those guys that like to play with goats are from. And and hey, don't take me serious, I'm just fucking around. However, the beauty of what they were saying, and I was listening to it, and for me, it made a huge impact. And I was retired. I was driving with my son, taking him to a fire department test for another agency. And I said, listen to this. And we spent 2 hours listening. And the biggest thing that stuck out in my head was, when he gets called middle of the night, it's an hour response time to get to this major emergency fire. And He pulls up and they're still doing the same exact things. They're not listening to the timestamp. They're not going, have we made any progress at this point? An hour in, and the first question he asks is, hey, have you been listening to the timestamps? Do you know how many you've been told you've had? And then my second question is, he said that it goes, firemen are creatures of habit. And we all are, every one of us. And he said, the thing that sticks out to me is when we find something that we can't beat with our plan A, we go plan AA again and go, well, hey, if we can't beat it, if we do it twice as hard, we're going to defeat it. And that's not how it works. You got to adjust. You've got to go, what's plan B? And maybe possibly a plan C. How do we adjust to what is happening right now with us? And every one of us should be very cognizant of those incident clocks. Every one of us, not just the Chiefs. That's what I have for that. Like I said, it was an anomaly, Colin. However, you got to expect sometimes the unexpected and go, how do I correct? We talk about that.
I mean, that's you do your inspection cut. You think you got it figured out. You go and however further into the roof, you need to put that saw on and you're not feeling it. That's a skill set issue right there. At that point, that's experience and skills. Okay, I need to realize that it's either 16 or 24 at this point. I should be feeling something. Stop. Change their pop it. I mean,
yeah, and we address that.
Bring that up is because, man, that inspection cut, the thing you taught me, that 6x6x6, and the things it identifies. I mean, I'm in a newer, quote unquote, newer city, valley, and I have even less of those anomalies happening. Don't get me wrong. I've had them too, but I've had even less of those, I would say, compared to, and that inspection cut, like in terms of boosting your confidence on a flat. Now, let's be clear, right? When we're talking about an inspection cut, we're not doing them on peak roofs. Like Mark said, we know what that is. It's a given. But when you get up on that flat, which could be commercial, residential, I mean, multi-family, like the gamut, we do an inspection cut in my company, in my department. And because of those things he said they identify. And that construction type and direction, that's huge. But then you get from me, take it a step further, and that height, he said at the height of that member. You know, if I open a roof, I do an inspection, or my fireman do an inspection cut, and okay, Cap, we got I-joist running the long span of this roof, right? How well? What do we automatically need to be considering? I'm going to look at that height of that I-joist in relation to the span of that roof, and that's going to tell me it can't go that far. It's not engineered. They're not going to pay that kind of money. There's got to be main beams. There's got to be beams. So these are things that inspection cut does so much for us. The on-center spacing. Hey, Cap, I can't feel the next one. Cool. Did you check your decking thickness? That means the decking thickness had to go up. All right. There is a relationship there that every fireman needs to understand in terms of building construction. We need to understand that the height of the member has a limitation on how far it can carry load. They got to put something to connect it to help with the load. And that also the on-center spacing of one member to the next determines the thickness of the decking on top of it. It has to.
Colin, do me a favor while you're talking about that specific, size and height of that open web constructed.
Even
just what I'm saying, just for especially for the listeners, give an explanation of that. The taller they are or the smaller they are, what does that do?
Okay, so just from experience, I don't have, hey man, if it's 12 inches tall, it's only going to be able to go 22 and a half feet. Like, I don't have that figured out. But through experience and doing this for a lot of years, based on what Mark taught me, however many years ago, and then adapting it to my district, to my construction, I learned unofficially that you can tell when you dip your hand into that inspection cut and you grab, I don't care if it's a 2x8 or an I-joist that's 8 inches tall. It can only carry load so far. They have to put an intersecting beam to relieve that shorter, when I say shorter, the height of that member, that 8 inch or 10 inches, that's what I'm talking about. They have to relieve it of its load carrying job and start again. That's everything. That's everything from a roof op on lightweight ops, especially commercial. Because lam beams, engineered glue laminate beams, are the only engineered structural member that I have bet my life on. Bet my life, because they don't fail. They don't fail. Take me to the bank. They just do not fail from the time we are operating on these buildings to collapse. They don't fail. They're the only thing standing every single time. Anybody that's been to them and paid attention has seen that. So that's what I look for. It becomes a informal thing, Mark, and it's just my gut. Like if I have a 12-inch eye joist on a 75-foot deep roof, I'm not look for the beam, fellas. Look for the beam. I mean, we're always looking for the beam, that lead sounder, but maybe that's what you're getting. I see you shaking.
That's exactly what I wanted you to say. That's what I want. That's the information that has to get out.
Conversely, if I go up on a 50 by 50 standalone commercial, and I've got a fucking 2.5 foot tall eye joist or open web truss, there ain't no beam, fellas. There ain't no beam. So how aggressive do we get with this roof operation in the center of that building? We're going to stay a lot closer to the fucking walls, but we'll still affect ventilation. Pay attention to that interior layout. What can you get away with, right? If it's in a residential building, well, everything's more compartmentalized. I'm going to have to be way more specific with my roof op, that hole. But when I'm in a commercial structure, it's probably open floor plan. Do I have to be as specific with surgical with the placement of that opening? No. Anyways, that inspection cut was everything for me as I started getting in and wrapping my head around. Because one thing that nobody will stop saying or not argue, we have to perform ventilation. We have to perform ventilation in support of extinguishment and search. We have to perform ventilation. There's a lot of different ways to do that. But the added benefit to the roof operator, a vertical ventilation, is that, man, that company, that team, that roof division, whatever you call them, they're in the best seat in the house to tell whether or not we can even go under this system. Get them up there, man. That's equally as important as the vent itself. But I don't want to dominate. Sorry. Go ahead. Anything else? What else?
Well, I think go ahead, Cameron. And then after that, I want to kind of say one thing about that supposed inspection cut.
Okay, well, that's what I'm touching on too right there real quick is that we touched on it last time in the spotting, but this is laddered on an uninvolved section, especially when it relates to a lightweight roof. This is not happening on an involved section of the roof. It's happening on an uninvolved corner, hopefully. And like you guys said, 6 feet off. Like Colin just mentioned, it's not a visual inspection. The saw operator is reaching in with a gloved hand, and that's how he's identified.
Absolutely. Oh, Cameron, you bring that up. I've had a lot of guys argue with me on that. I don't need to do that, Colin. Then you ain't been to enough fires.
Yeah.
Because it don't take much smoke to come out of that inspection because you can't see shit.
Yep.
You're going to have to feel.
Yep. It's at night and it's got smoke coming out of it. Yeah, you're going to have to feel. And you're going to have to know exactly what you're feeling, right? Hey, is that an open wall wood truss? Is that a TGI? What am I feeling here?
We had a solid fireman on my job that literally made miniature versions of all of the types of the pre-engineered roof systems you'd have. And he put it in a little 4x4 box and we cover it with sheet OSB, and we black guys out and have to reach in and tell me what they're feeling.
Yeah.
Reinforce that. That's huge for us.
That's the other good part, right? Is he's telling the rest of the roof crew what he felt and exactly what he's got going on. So the rest of the roof crews knows what kind of system they're working on, they're operating on.
Absolutely. And one further, that can also help direct path of travel. Correct. Keep that in mind, guys. That's a huge. I say that the amount of information you get out of it is something that you can never get by not doing it, and the time that it takes to do it and a knowledge gain is for me, it's a non-negotiable for somebody up on a roof. I'm not going to go with a guy out there. I wanted to say something, and that is, think about this. We're talking about this lightweight system, but I'm going to go back to this conventional system, and that is, we know which way rafters go on bridge truss, arch truss, gable truss. We know that. You know why that inspection hole goes there? It's the fourth part of this fucking thing more than anything. And that is, what are the conditions? Do you want to continue out when you find fire? Right. We know which way the rafters are going. There's nothing in there that's telling me any different. Right. They set it up specifically. It's a grid. And if you know how they're constructed, then you know exactly what you're on. However, the safety factor is for you and your people. And that is, what are the conditions? What do I have below me?
Mark taught me, in terms of arch roof operations, he taught me my operation with that because that's, again, 10% of my roofs. And we started talking about, and what's the big, one thing that I think there's some confusion on it, and I'm sorry, probably may should have opened with this. There is a difference between truss construction and pre-engineered truss construction. Firemen out there, right? When you hear truss, you need to be specific. What are we talking about? Are we talking about a legacy arch timber truss or gable timber truss that is humongous, heavy timber dimensions, greater than 8 inches in circumference, and it's lag bolted? There are no gusset plates. Like, that is a different animal than a pre-engineered truss. However, behavior is the same once you reach failing point. We can get into that, but we need to differentiate the two, right? So when he's talking about these arch timber truss, gable timber truss, like, that is a legacy, much older type of system, where the on-center spacing between those trusses, Mark, what'd you say, 20 feet, 30 feet, whatever?
Yeah, I mean, but the beauty of it is, 2x8, 2x12, that system is in good condition, is fucking bomb-proof. It's fucking badass. And now, of course, we can go into the tied truss right in the fall of those turnbuckles, right? But I would say this again, and I go back to something that I heard, a guy that I respect a ton on the job and still close friends with, and he talks about getting inside buildings. He was at the busiest station in the country, and what he did. Now 90% of it's EMS. We all know, unless the guy pulls out a revolver or a knife and kicks and takes care of business with you when you pull up on this thing, they don't kill our members, right? So if you're not, the beauty of Los Angeles City is you go into your buildings doing fire prevention general inspections. You get into a lot of buildings, not all of them, I get it, but you get into a lot. And even if you didn't, that building wasn't assigned to you, it was a bureau occupancy, I can stop pretty much anywhere I want. And most people, when they see what you're trying to accomplish, will be super gracious and allow you to go in there and look at their building, to poke around and screw around and do whatever you need to do. Next thing I'll say is, if you're not taking your company and you're in a busy place and you're not making yourself not available, because in your head you got a radio, and you're not taking your people in there and looking how buildings are constructed, especially stuff that's new to you, that lightweight system in this legacy constructed era that like Los Angeles has. The other valley's got a lot more new stuff. However, they got a lot of old stuff. But to not take the time and go, hey, let's take 5 minutes while we're on this call. We won't hit available yet, but we can certainly take a run if it pops up in our area, and take your people in and take the time to educate them on, especially these younger members. Hey, this is what this is. Look at this. Understand what we can and cannot accomplish on this particular building based on the construction.
I'd like to, Cam, if I could, when we talked about the difference. Trusses are trusses. How they're built is such, in terms of era, is humongously different, right? And can burn time, what you can get away with. But why they're so much more appealing than a dimensional piece of lumber doing the same job, that's important to understand, firemen. When I want the manufacturing, why do arch timber, huge bowstring or arch timber truss or tied truss, bridge truss or gable truss, why do they exist? Why do those roofs even exist? So that they don't have to have vertical uprights limiting square footage usage inside that building, right? So if I had the same roof, let's say 100 by 100, legacy building, and you know what? We're just going to go 2x8s, 2x10s, 2x12s. I don't care what dimension across as the roof. It's flat roof. They're going to have to put columns every 20 feet, every 12 feet, whatever they figure out the distance, they're going to have to put them there. Now that limits the usage of that interior. But if we use a truss, which is a set of geometric shapes put together which can carry load much further, that is what enables us to have an open floor plan for manufacturing, for storage, whatever. And the building industry, homes, said, ooh, that's appealing in the residential, as we transitioned away from compartmentalized homes to that open floor plan. Great rooms. That's where it comes from. The building industry knows what the benefit of a truss is. You put the same I-joist, 12-inch tall I-joist next to a 2x12 rafter, and that I-joist will carry greater load a much further distance than the other with less material. So that's the beauty of this thing, right? But in terms of behavior, boy, they behave the same when they fail under fire. And something, I'd like to touch on, Mark, for your guys that are still going up on these things, man, there is this difference between a complete 100% wood arch timber truss roof and that quote unquote bowstring tie truss. Now, everybody uses bowstring interchangeably, and that's fine. But what I'm talking about is the risk of collapse and time of that solid wood arch timber truss roof with top and bottom cord and web, all large pieces of lumber, lag bolt together, versus that tie truss, which is, for those that aren't familiar what we're talking about, that's the wood top cord, and it just has a piece of steel cable coming down, which would, in the place of the web, connected to a steel cable under tension going across with like a turnbuckle system. We all understand fire and how it elongates steel. And we also, I hope, understand, if we're talking about truss construction, that bottom cord is the critical piece of lumber. That's the critical member. Because when that bottom cord, which is under tension, fails, there is nothing. That is the backbone of that truss system. That's the backbone. And we played around with, and you can absolutely, you talked about that inspection cut on an arch for fire condition, but you can, if you put it close enough to that shoulder truss, you can find out with your hook, with that aluminum D handle, a lot of the time, what the hell the bottom cord is. We know what it sounds like and what it feels like when you're banging metal on metal versus metal on wood. You can do that. Low on that bearing wall, at that shoulder truss, put an inspection cut in low, and reach in with your rubbish hook, flip it around, and use that aluminum D handle to bang that bottom cord. Find out what it is. Because we can't remember every freaking building we do a pre-fire on. I can't. We do so many. Anyways, I just wanted to throw that out there, just so we're starting off in a place where we understand what we're talking about here is not going to be that legacy truss system, although there are similar behavior patterns when they fail under fire. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So get up there, right? We talked about the need for the inspection hole on those flat roofs and the purposes of the inspection hole. What else about that roof op? Anything else you guys wanted to touch on that roof op as far as going out and what that looks like?
I would say, go back to that same thing we started out with, and that is, remember the strengths of a roof, and we all know where that is, right? That's along those bearing walls. This deviation, and I'm going to go down the center, and that this is obviously a little bit of a different roof, but then it starts to lead to people to believe that that's the safe place. How many times have we seen these guys, and Colin did something a year and a half ago or something, pointed out a roof, and I think it was in Detroit back there, right? And they're on this building, and they're on the ridge, and they're scooting along the ridge and not even walking it, which is, I don't think one is any better than the other than if I'm on my feet, at least I can make a good effort to get the hell away from there if something goes south. If I'm scooting, but I'm at the mercy of the court, right? However, the building looks legacy, and it was not. Lightweight system, and these guys are up on the highest point. And remember, like anything else, that's where the heat goes to. That's where the smoke goes to. That's where the preheating occurs first. It is. Smoke is path of least resistance. The same with heat. It goes upward. Buildings will burn to the ground from the top down if you let it go long enough. However, it wants to go up. It's following that path. Keep those things in mind when you get on these buildings, man. The walls are your safe spot, no matter what it is. And Colin talked about the big, the main beam going down the center. Yeah, you're still going to walk the wall, though, to a point that you determine, okay, I got to make a 90 here. I got to get out to that main beam, and then I have to continue out on this main beam to go into my ventilation holes. Kind of like a panelize. It's the same thing, right? Purlins and main beams, for me, I want to be on that main beam. That's my friend. However, I can adapt based on fire location to that purlin cut. But still, the onus should be you get to a certain point and then you transition onto that structural member to lead you out to get your ventilation hole. And that's what I'd say. Keep in mind, the walls are our friends, and I don't care what kind of building it is. We know that.
Piggyback off what Mark's saying, your original question. Once we've done that inspection cut, we need to determine our path of travel, and we're going to travel walls. In my agency, just to reiterate and reinforce the concept, I didn't hear Mark say it, and we have a policy that we do not travel the peak of a roof into the fire. We do not, because we know that, again, the lion's share of buildings in my agency are pre-engineered truss systems. We're talking 1.5 by 3.5 top cord and bottom cord and web with a 3/8 inch plate, squeezing those at the gusset, at the connection point. And there is no true ridge beam. Again, that construction comes into play. Conventional, you got that true ridge beam, right? That is literally a continuous piece of lumber at the ridge that those rafters are then nailed off of over and rest over the bearing wall. That is not the case on that. I would make the argument that even on those, like Mark said, when they fail, where do you run to anyways? So why not just stay there? It's not easy to travel a peak or a ridge into a fire regardless. You're off kilter. You're trying to sound effectively. It's just an odd way of doing it. Don't get me wrong. That an uninvolved area, which we try our best to do, we've got to do a size up when we ladder the uninvolved area. We're going to get eyes up on that peak to get a global look of that building. That's something we try to do. But at that point, we are deciding, are we going to continue down and go to the rear of it and come across the bearing wall because the fire's in that back bedroom? Or are we going to stay along Alpha and just travel the Alpha side and go up cut? Can we accomplish it from this side? Whatever. But we don't travel that ridge because it is a false ridge. It is not a continuous piece of lumber. And it can't be if you understand how a truss roof is put together. It's just a miniature version of that arch gable truss roof. It's just a miniature version of it.
Yep.
So path of travel on that flat, again, and for all you construction zealots, we understand that not all four walls are load bearing on every structure. We get that. But for semantics, we're going to utilize the load bearing wall is that perimeter wall. That's what we're talking about. And I'll still put my ass on a non-load bearing wall to save my ass and get off that roof. So I don't discern between, oh shit, that's not load bearing. It's going against the truss direction. We can't go to that wall. Let's not be zealots. That's what we're talking about. So
Approach is everything. It is. There's no doubt.
we don't do, and we see it a lot, man. There is a lot of just willy-nilly, no kind of plan. I'm just going to, we call it cross country, no real sounding. And I mean, to each his own, man, but the tools you bring up there, hook choice, type of hook, is everything, again, towards your safety. You want a harpoon, or do you want a piece of steel 6 inches to 8 inches wide that's really hitting and driving in front of you, out in front of you, to find out before you arrive to that area whether or not it is a structurally sound? We're going to use that tongue in cheek. It's being attacked by fire, so no, it's not structurally sound. But as we approach, before we arrive there, we need to find out. And that's where we use the sounding. Somebody said, sounding? What's sounding? I don't know how the building was before I got there. Huh? What? I don't even understand that comment, but sounding is how we make sure before we actually arrive a live body into a compromised area that that roof is sound. We don't abandon our God-given senses. We cannot abandon our feet, but we use the shit out of the saw to find out the fire conditions in front of us as we go. But we damn sure use the reach of that hook and a good, strong, solid bang, pound on that area to make sure that, to the best of our ability. Is it foolproof? Absolutely not, man. But it's all about controlling. Mark always said, control what you could control, because the fire will throw enough at you. This is something we could control. Why would we not do that? And equipment choice when you're up there definitely lends to that. I'm sorry, and that's how we now have chosen that path to travel. We travel these roofs at right angles. We don't do that half, shortest A to B, get to the fire cross country. We don't do that. We just don't do that. We don't lose anything by doing purposeful movement and having right angle paths out to that fire. We don't lose anything. What, 3 seconds? But what we gain, like Mark said, is everything for our safety. Everything.
Yeah.
Because if something goes wrong, we're at the escape route. And that's what it's about. Yeah. We hang it out there for that engine company. We hang it out there for that search. But we walk that line and we find that rub between doing that for them, but also providing for our own safety in a way off in a hurry. That's the rub, man.
Yeah. And I think just to touch on that tool thing too, right? Because it varies across the nation. Like you said, we're using that 6-foot rubbish hook with the aluminum D handle. Every member on that roof is scabbarded with a fireman's axe. And we prefer on those wood roofs, which
Non-negotiable.
that's going to be a chainsaw, right? We're not coming up there with a rotary with a wood blade. This is a chainsaw that we can feel and identify those members with that bar.
Yeah, I mean, guys want to argue, and we've had these debates forever, right? I mean, chainsaw and rotary saw. And hey, man, you're the one up there. You get to pick your equipment. However, I would tell you, and they talk about, you know, the benefit of the rotary saw over the chainsaw is the thickness of the roof. And you don't know, Colin, because you work in a new town. And I would default to, oh, hey, what about my mentor Mark here? His district isn't new, and he's got roofs with 8 inches of tar, yet they get through shit pretty quick. So technology is amazing in some regards, and you have the ability to manipulate a chainsaw over a rotary saw, the lack of gyros, the depth of that bar to get through and cut down, score cut and remove shit, get down there and feel those structural members. Mark, I mean, please jump in on that. But that's
You would just say probably the thing that in my head, because we did a lot of stuff and especially when I was a young fireman, because we only had one chainsaw. So when we came back into fire, KH put the wood cutting blade on the rotary saw and I sit in the AO's compartment. Yeah, okay, we do that. However, when you go out and put those two things face to face, this is just my opinion, you can take it or leave it, you will see in a very long-term cutting operation, that rotary saw blade guard, let it cool off. Don't cut for a fucking minute. Stop cutting. Let that tar sit inside that thing. Your track is the thickness of that blade. So now that thing sets, God forbid it got wet, right? It's like taking a rolling steel door and it's fucking superheated on the backside of it. Then you put water on it. You just toughen the steel out of that thing. You made that steel. It's like, come on, use your head. And then you go, let me get this thing fired. It doesn't even want to fire because it can't spin because the blade guard's loaded with tar. The beauty of that chainsaw is it's been thought up. It's been invented. I mean, the chainsaw wasn't invented for the fire service, but these companies have taken it to a new level so that these things operate in the worst conditions on that roof, right? Keep that in mind. And the beauty is it can, like Colin said, you can manipulate it so much easier. A rotary saw, basically, if you try to take it out of a line, because I've seen guys, you go, hey, put a head cut. I've done it. You do a head cut and you look back at that and go, fuck, I thought I cut that straight. And you see this, right? And it's like, but it still operates. A rotary saw, you start to deviate off of that center, it wants to jump on you. It does a lot of things. It's very hard to control depth of cut. It's very hard, right? And then put that on a roof where you can't see. And it's like, I just, for Mark could never feel a rafter with the rotary saw. I just can't, right? Now, maybe that's a lack of training. Maybe it's me going, you know what? I love the chainsaw better. However that is, I just prefer that as a roof tool. And I think Cameron's making a really good point here. And that is, if you have an operation, take care of that operation, feel comfortable with it, but don't be afraid to go, you know what are these clowns out in the on the east, or excuse me, on the West Coast doing? And I say that only because, go back to one of the earlier podcasts, and that was, we don't share information. We don't. And we're our own worst enemies because we get up on these things and go, well, hey, somebody said to do it like this, and that's the way we're going to do it because that's our department's history, legacy, whatever that is. These things that I'm telling you that I wanted to do weren't thought up by me. I took a lot of information from a lot of people. Laddering, where do I want to go? In the center of the building or the corner? Well, that was taught to us, stay to the corners. Nothing I'm doing is something that I invented. It truly isn't, other than I said, when I get on a roof, I'm not going to have my guys beat the dog shit out of them and make 2 cuts or 3 cuts. I'm going to make it so that they can get that material out of the way and they're staying as fresh as possible for the extension of the cut. That's it. That's nothing I did. That's all through things that guys came before me did and then taught this. And then we learned those lessons. Let's not go back and revisit shit and go, hey, I know this because, hey, the reactors run the same way as Boulevard. That's bullshit. And I've heard that more than once on my job. It's like, you're so full of shit, your eyes are brown. Really? So that's how they designed it. How the designer said, hey, there's a Boulevard. Let's run the rafters the same way. Get out of here with that shit.
And that's even amplified and pre-engineered in my town. the guys think that, it's the shallow span is the way they run. Bullshit. That is the beauty of pre-engineered and truss construction. They don't have to. And I have entire strip malls where the roof system runs with the length of the strip mall. And over at the top of every new wall for a new store is a beam. So stop it. Do your inspection cut. It takes 8 to 10 seconds if you have the right equipment, and you'll find out what the hell, you got a great starting point.
And I'll say, before we beat this thing to death, do yourself a favor. If you're a company that has a chainsaw and a rotary saw, get yourself a guy and have him operate a hole with the rotary saw, have that same cutter, so that there's no tricks here going, hey, that guy's more skilled than the other guy, and have him do the other thing and put him on a clock. Same exact fucking roof. I think you'll notice that it's a time saver, and it's a lot more maneuverable, and it's better for your overall roof operation. The less time we're up there spent dicking around cutting, the better off we are.
Yeah. And I think that chainsaw's got to be the correct chainsaw and set up the correct way, right? We prefer that still 460, no guard on it. The 20-inch bar is completely open with an RDR chain that allows it to cut really well through material.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the other part of this, right? You can get a chainsaw, but if you're going to go up there with a shitty little, just a regular wood cutting, you got to spec the right chain. You got to spec the right chain.
Yeah. Right size motor, right size.
Chains are damn near indestructible these days. They really are.
Hey, and the same goes with the bar. Don't think that.
Yeah, right.
We've seen that silliness. It's like, whoa. Hey, you're not cutting tree limbs, Jack, in your backyard. You're not.
Yeah. So, we touch on the roof op, right? It kind of stays the same regardless on involved to involved. He's coming up on a flat. He's going to do an inspection hole 6 feet off that 6x6x6, like we talked about, to identify all those different reasons. Walking at right angles, load bearing walls, doing his diagnostic work on the way out as he sees fit, right?
Cameron, be sure. I don't know that we explain diagnostic work, what that is to us.
Okay. You guys correct me if I'm wrong on here, but we're going to do either a curve cut, a diamond cut, or a small triangle. We're talking small triangle out of the path of travel on your way to the fire. Every right angle, change of direction, or every 20 feet, depending on conditions.
As you see fit.
I'm going to put something out there. Or if I'm going to pass any type of a heavy load, I'm going to put something in just to check for fire around that load on the way out. But I'm going to put that diagnostic work out looking for smoke conditions, fire conditions underneath me. Because like Mark said at the beginning, I'm not passing fire if I'm going to get on top of fire, and I find that
No, we find fire where we find it, right?
Yeah, just like a nozzleman, right? So anything else on diagnostic work that you guys want to touch on? That saw operators doing that.
You locate that big ass beam. Man, maybe you've traveled that wall now 50 feet in, and you've located that beam. Again, in my world, my guy's doing another inspection cut because I need to know what the hell they're using for that beam. I can have a lamb beam. They can double up open web wood trusses. Seen that had that. It could be all steel truss. I want to know before I commit out 20 feet into the middle of this commercial what I'm on. So that's another thing. And on top of that, beams oftentimes lead to a smoke curtain. So let's make sure and dip both sides of that beam once we determine what that beam is.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure it's not compartmentalized or what's going on there. Conditions.
Yeah. And
a tick, I will say that a tick is important for me on the roof. A lot, I talk to a lot of guys in various places, especially in older areas. It's not even a consideration for the roof team, and that's to each his own. But for me and my roofs and what I'm dealing with, the tick is important. It comes in handy. Now, I'm not like this with it, but it's another tool I have when question marks start arising, and I'm going to start scanning and using that tick along with that radio and those comms to that engine. How far in are you? What do you got? And I'm going to, try my best. And why not? It's hanging on me. Run that tick up and scan that roof. Apart from lightweight construction or conventional construction, period, building features will lend themselves to smoke migration accumulation on the roof that you cannot escape. We've all been on roofs where we get heavy smoke condition. You can't see the rest of our team, but it's very short-lived. There are those roofs based off the features. I just had one where the fucking roof op, 90% of the time, I could not see where my guys were.
Yeah.
It was the 10% where I got a break in the smoke, and I had to pull my tick up to monitor my crew just to see them. That's how bad it was. So as a consideration, I also go up with a tick. When you have a heavy foam deck or you don't, what's going on there? Overhaul fires, when it's not a rip roaring fire, working fire, and it's something where we need to maybe do more overhaul, very specific surgical cuts. A tick's a pretty handy thing for that. So you're not just ripping arbitrary holes guessing where that fire is. Not always, but it can be handy.
Yeah. Well, what do you guys think about? Okay, so now we're sounding our way out to do our offensive heat hole. What do you think about having that lead hook as he's sounding out? Identify where your rafters or your trusses are at for the saw operator. Good idea. Bad.
Right, man. So are we going to get to the point where I lose my mind? Because are you talking about the guy that draws a line and says cut here after he's gotten out there? And it's like, stop the horse shit. If you gave a guy a saw and you lead him out to a specific point, and then you have to tell him at that point with your actions where the hole needs to go, that guy probably shouldn't be on the saw. I mean, it's funny, but it's not funny, right? Because that's like me going, hey, I'm going to lead the rookie out, and I got this fire, right? And I'm going to show him where I want this head cut. It's like, stop the horse shit, man. That guy, that operator needs to be a guy that possesses a skill set in order to hold that saw, right? However, if you're at that point, you've got some good fire, you've done a couple holes, they're starting to get a knockdown, then you want to give people the ability of knowing what it's like to cut under those conditions. I'm all for that, but for the initial hole, and if you're involved in that good firefight still, don't have a guy come out. That's just my opinion. It's like, I for sure don't want the officer on the hook. I don't, because that guy's not doing his job now. Yeah. Right. And that's not his job. I get it. Some people go up with the 2-man crew and it's like, hey, whatever that is, that's your business. That was not my world. I was lucky enough to not have that, where I had a 2-man roof op. However, when you do that, you have to remember there's a lot of shit that is involved with that 2-man roof crew, because as soon as that guy sounds out, it's not my job to show you where I want. And my job is now to step back and now become the safety officer and the guy that's watching you, the safety for the guy that's cutting. So it's like there's a lot of responsibility with just a 2-man roof crew. I guess that's the best way I can put it, right? Mm-hmm. When you're not actively involved in work, man, you got a lot of shit to do. Monitor the radio. Stay in a spot that's comfortable enough that you can scan the roof and the actual guy performing the ventilation. And I mean, like I said, we talked about the comms, and then get ready to go, hey, CAG, you're Rick, because the minute he's done and that break goes on, that's the sign for those guys to move in and start pulling that work. You better be attuned to that too. So you're putting a lot of responsibility on the guy that's not working, whatever that is, saw operator and or the hook, the guy that's on the hook. That's why it's for us, for LA City, that 3-man roof team is a combo that works really well. And especially on the critical fires, that's when I want that 4th guy. That's when I want that truck captain up there. And besides in the old days, and I'm not saying it's different now, but I think we've gotten to the point where we're putting people in positions that they've never operated a saw on a working fire. And now we make them the officer, and they're sitting in the cab, and it's like, you explain to me how that works, because God forbid something happens to them. Can you go explain to his loved ones why you weren't on the roof? Can somebody please tell me that? Because I think we've missed that. Whatever it is, the admin on LA City, whatever it is, telling these guys to sit there in case there's a mayday. And it's like, well, I would tell you what, the mayday that's probably going to occur that nobody really gets to see is off that roof. When we're sitting in the street watching what goes on there, we're seeing where those lines are going in for the most part. And we know based on that, hey, what's happening with fire attack? That roof operation, 9 times out of 10 is a blind view for that guy. Right. So don't I want to set eyes up there to take care of those guys? That's I know it's kind of getting away from them, but I'm thinking of the safety of a roof operation. And that is, man, you need some eyes to be your guys' safety, because you got guys that are elbow deep in shit, right? Got a puller and a safety guy. And now you got a guy listening to the radio to make sure things are going correctly. Please keep that in mind. And I know I'm not going to beat that in anybody's head that's on my job, but I would say I'm getting up there as quick as I can. Do what you need me to do, and you want me to tell people to go stage on a corner, walk and fucking don't walk. Okay, whatever. That's your damn business. But is that really pertinent to what's going on up there? It's a dangerous job, guys. Don't get me wrong. We're kind of laughing and joking about a lot of shit. That roof crew, man, think about that. You're basically a hot dog on a stick. Keep that in mind. Whether it's lightweight or conventional, it's time sensitive.
That's a habit I have to break a lot of the time, Cameron.
Mhm.
Guy, that lead hook will want to do that. And it's like, first of all, don't try to tell us where the rafters are because you don't know.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean shit. That's why we have a chainsaw to find them. That's why we do a head cut first against construction. We establish that perimeter. So yeah, it's a waste of energy. It's a waste of effort. And you're in my fucking way to cut my hole. Get out of the way.
Yeah.
Make sure I can safely stand there and then get out of the way and back me up.
Yep.
So I can cut. Because like Mark said, especially on pre-engineered, it's timely.
Yeah.
Very timely.
Yeah. Just touch on that heat hole, that first offensive hole real quick, right? So like you alluded to, we're putting in that head cut first. How do you guys determine how far that head cut's going to be? What's that determinating factor?
I'd like to talk about how aggressive am I going to be with that head cut over the fire?
Mm-hmm.
Because remember, I mean, the beauty of, don't get me wrong, same rules apply no matter what the roof system is.
Uh-huh.
It's just the time is cut drastically down for pre-engineered. It is once, this is critical because sheetrock's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
Once the fire has entered the truss space,
That's impact.
fucking attic, whatever word you want to call it, the plenum, I don't give a shit. When the fire is now attacking the roof system, we are on that clock. Some of us got 40 minutes of fun time. Some of us got 5 to 10 minutes of fun time, depending on volume of fire, span of the roof system, how far it's going before a vertical support is happening, right? And the load on top. So for me, those diagnostics, those curves, smoke indicators, they're critical not only to locate and find out immediately what's going on, where we're at, but where is that operational line for me? How aggressive can I get with this fire? Mm-hmm. The goal we all know is to cut over the fire is the most effective form of vertical ventilation. It's going to be felt the fastest to interior crews.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I do that with fire attacking an I-joist system? Well, that depends. Is it attacking an I-joist system? What are my diagnostics telling me? What is my size up on the roof telling me? Is it attacking the system? Is it on the wrong side of the sheetrock? Then I got to make some choices, right? And if we're on that commercial span, I will tell you right now, man, there's a lot of, well, in my opinion, misinformation regarding truss construction. Never trust the truss and all this stuff. We can establish an honest, predictable outcome of truss systems pre-engineered. I firmly believe that because I've been doing it, and we've been doing it for a long time. And I was told these tenets of truss roofs, 5 to 10 minute rule, domino effect, all these little rules to live by, and a lot of them weren't adding up. It's not what I was seeing. So you start to put the pieces together. Why? Right. And that's where I was like, first of all, sheetrock does an amazing job at preventing the structural member from being attacked. It does. There are lateral members tying each truss system and that roof system together, right, to prevent shear forces from toppling them. Those play a role in collapse. Some call them rat runs, whatever your term is for them. They play a role in terms of a collapse.
Yeah. Even the
guys is showing me that if that truss is going to fail, you do not want to be anywhere on that truss.
Yeah.
But if I'm against construction, 3-4 away, in my experience, I'm okay. Now I'm talking about truss roofs that are 24 inches on center, 32 inches on center, right? It typically takes the one left and right of it with it. As a general tip, when it goes, if there's a considerable load there, it takes that one left and right. But you can amplify that. Again, we said they behave the same, right? Mark's going on arch timber trusses that are 20 feet apart. And when that center one goes and it brings the one left and right of it, now you've got a 40-foot span of roof. There's a huge void in. So it's all relative to what the system actually is. But trusses still behave the same. You just got to kind of, keep everything within perspective. I don't know if that makes sense. I hope that's making sense. Mm-hmm. So I got to figure out, am I going to trade space for time so that I can be effective for the roof team, knowing that I'm not going to be as effective that I like because I just can't cut over the fire because this I-joist system is now being attacked by fire, or it has been attacked by fire. We don't know when it got in there, so we're behind the 8 ball. We're always behind the 8 ball getting to the roof, period. So I got to make that choice, and it doesn't change. Right? My sounding, my diagnostic work. Mark's going to do the same thing on a conventional roof for that. So it doesn't change. This is why his SOG worked for me so well. I hope I'm making sense there.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to figure out where can we cut before how long we do a head cut or all that. Like how aggressive can we get with this system?
And that whole way up leads to it, because you did the inspection hole, which tells you the type of roof that you're on and lets you know how aggressive you can be based on your diagnostic work and what's going on your way out to the fire. And you did a narrow review.
And,
right.
and not only cutting with or against, but standing with or against when it's being attacked by fire will save your ass.
Mm-hmm.
It will.
Mm-hmm. So now you can go out, you could place that offensive hole. Head cut starts first. Length of that head cut's determined because you did that inspection hole and you saw how far those members are apart. And that's going to be beneficial to the pullers about how far you put that head cut and how much material they're going to pull. Because I don't know if we touched on that, but we're pulling our work. We're not louvering our work or setting our work down into the building. We're pulling.
I will tell you, I will louver panelized only because we cannot leave that purlin or that main, especially that purlin. So louvering that on our way out versus trying to pull. I've seen guys, they come off center, and that's a no. All right, because you're relegated to that purlin or that beam if you're aggressive, which you can be aggressive on panelized, provided you know what the purlin, the lamb beams are made of, or the main beams are being, what are they using for those? So that's the one roof where we'll louver on our way out because you don't lose anything. It's typically a commercial building with open, and if it's not, we got to communicate with the engine. They should be pulling ceiling regardless. Mm-hmm. But that's the one roof we'll louver. But in general, absolutely, we try to pull our work.
Mm-hmm. And then the hole gets open, right? Anything you guys want to talk about?
Talk about why we pull our work. Did you?
No, well, not really.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, nothing's worse than louvering. And if anybody knows what diaphragm nailing is, right? That's that pattern of OSB or decking plywood that they put on that roof, continuous from one side all the way to the other, in an off center. So each row is staggered like a brick wall for added strength, seismic activity, shear force, wind. It adds strength to the roof. So when it's off center like that, eventually you're going to be seam to seam, and the wood and the cut piece will just fall in. Or you louver a little too hard and it didn't do a good job nailing, and it flies off, and now it's laying perfectly against on the bottom cords, right where you need to punch the ceiling, and you got smoke in your face. It's a shitty thing to do. Avoid it. You can control that, get it out of the way, and then you got a clean piece of ceiling to work. Mark's talked about that thing will spin and continue through the roof, and then it hits a guy in the head or takes an engine company guy or whatever. That happens too. But man, like control, we can control and keep a clean hole so that you have no obstruction, nothing in your way to punch that ceiling, because it doesn't matter how big your roof hole is if your ceiling hole is shit. Mm-hmm. That's the hole that matters.
Mm-hmm. Anything else you want to touch on the hole size or the actually opening up the roof?
What was your measuring stick, Mark? When did you stop cutting?
So a commercial cut for me was different than a residential cut, right? And that is on that commercial building, large open space, arch truss, rift, even a flat roof. I want to go 2 double centers laterally first, do my hard work first, and then extend with construction as my secondary extension, right? And the reason is, do your hard work, and that's going to be your pullers too, right? And your cutter. I got to cut 4 sides on those very first 2 holes. But when I start extending with the construction after that, the head cut's there. There's the purchase point for your pullers.
Mark, for the audience, double center is roll 2, stop at 3.
Mark's steep. It's
a lot out there, so I just
So Mark's going to tell you what double center for me is, right? Because 7, 8 coffin cut all stuff, it makes no sense to me because I didn't care because I didn't do that, and maybe it fits into their diagram of that. But that is, saw goes into the work, and the first thing I do is I use the top of the bar and go away from my body to identify that first perimeter rafter. Once I find that, then I come right back and I roll 2 rafters, right? Roll 1, roll 2, stop at 3. So if you look at a grand scheme of things, that's 3 bays that are cut for that puller. A dice goes on the last one that I stopped at, right on the inside of that. I split the length of the roof or the head cut down the center, and you're splitting it. As long as it's between the two rafters, it's gonna work. Keep that in mind. But you just got to keep track of it, right? And then the last cut goes where I identified by putting that blade in and going forward. That's the last one, just the inside of that. And then my bottom cuts, I never roll rafters. And that's the hardest habit to break for somebody, because they know when you're going against construction, you roll rafters. The reason I said, hey, why am I doing that? Why do I need to spend time rolling rafters? I did it up top. I identified the perimeters of this hole and the length of the hole that I was going to do. All I need to do now is connect the cuts, right? So I set that bar in there, and I'm going to go right over the top and skim cut every one of those tops of those rafters so that I can get this operation done in a quicker fashion. Mm-hmm. That's about it. On a single family, I'll start off again as a double center, but if I'm going to extend, for the most part, I'm going to extend downward, because I've hit the jackpot. If I'm in the fire room, I don't want to drag it across the wall into another fucking room if I don't have to, right? That's what I'm trying to do is, hey, let's lessen the ability of me going, hey, did I vent something that didn't need venting? Why, if I've hit the jackpot, why don't I stay on that line of 777s? Let's stay within the perimeter of that and go, hey, what am I going to do? I'm going to extend it right here. I know I hit it. Let's stay on top of that instead of going, and same with an apartment, right? Same thing. I start going laterally. I may take it into another unit. I have no idea where they put the walls in this place. No idea. I'm taking a gamble by going across and doing it that way. Volume of fire, attic space involvement changes that a little bit, right? It does. It's just like, okay, yeah, let's just go lateral. It doesn't matter what it is. I'm going to go lateral for the first two cuts. Mm-hmm. Extend downward on the other side. But everything else, normal ventilation for that particular room or that area, heat and smoke escape, it's going to be a double center, and then I'm going to fall back to extending with construction.
Mm-hmm. So you have to you do have to take in consideration what you visualize the interior layout to be, how wide open, and that in yes. Vertical versus residential.
Yes.
Because, when you cut a commercial, and we've been in that situation where I'm at the point, a couple double centers, which is what I would have done in a house, and they're still not feeling the effects of it. Well, that's because it's a commercial fucking building with greater fire load and an open space. Give it a minute, engine, but we keep cutting, and eventually they feel it. So you have to keep that into relation, or keep that in mind as you're going. But I mean, in general, you cut till the engine gets effect, or you can't stand in there anymore.
It's a visual, right? It's a visual. We got to be smart enough to know what's going on here, right? Because you hear that a lot. I think we hear guys go, hey, you get a hole and get off, right? That seems to be something that I've heard more than once and continue to hear. Get a hole and get off. Okay. Are we trying to be smart enough to realize that there's still people in there and they're not saying anything? And I say these guys, if you're not going to believe your lying eyes, you're a fool. If you've got pressurized, ugly smoke, you need to expand that hole. Mm-hmm. However you pick to do that is your business. But let your eyes tell you what needs to happen here, because I'm certainly not getting on the radio if I see that and ask the guy, you got any relief yet? I know he doesn't. Get your head out of your ass and go, what do I see here? And that comes with experience, right? It does. And you'll start to see that. And then you'll also know the smoke that's going to light. You can tell these guys, man, hey, get back there when I'm cutting the second part of this thing, extending this. If you're not masked up, and we had a program for that, right? It's like, hey, I'm the cutter. I'm going to hang in there. I'm going to put it in. These guys are going to step back and get their shit on. So when they comes in and they go to pull it and this thing lights, they're already on air, right? And that's an agency thing. I get it. But if you don't have an agency thing, develop a plan for that. Something that looks like a cut and dry, hey, we're going to cut this and it's going to vent the room, turns into a full-blown attic fire with 8 or 10 foot flame lengths coming out. You're not going to do it when you're not on air. You're just not. It doesn't work that way. So have a plan to adapt to something, changing conditions on that roof, especially during the ventilation operation.
And I would also say, in terms of double center, single centers, right? Rolling 2 or rolling 1, that on center spacing is going to also determine that.
It does.
Right. So we get on a commercial where we got thicker decking. I noticed that on my inspection cut. And you know what? Now I can't reach the next one over. Shit, this is going to be 32, 36, 48 inches quite often on a commercial for me. Well, we're going to revert back down to a single center. It's just going to be one center rafter rolled, stop on find that perimeter, roll 1 and stop at 2, because we got to make the hole manageable. And it's the same damn size as that double center on that house, more or less. And time matters. These guys want to talk about big fire, big hole. Well, while you're sitting there rolling 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 fucking rafters and you haven't punched the ceiling, you ain't done shit for nobody inside. The beauty of this operation that, again, Mark taught me years ago is it takes no thought process, man. If you find those perimeter rafters, boom, and I can expand that cut so flipping easy, and it's just exponentially getting opened up so fast.
Yeah, and that's the same regardless if I'm on a pitched single family dwelling or if I'm on a flat commercial. If it's lightweight or it's commercial, that same exact operation all the way up to that is generally the same. It doesn't change. There's not a commercial roof op versus the residential roof op, and they're completely different two operations.
And yeah, I would say that's the beauty of right. If you're a good company and you guys are out there practicing and remember, I can't tell you how many fires you get. That's just, that's up to God, I guess. Right. However, I had a guy say to me that was on my crew and that is, hey, we can only be good at the things that we practice if we're not going to fires. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's the lead in, man. Is like, if you practice and you got the touch, hopefully that's going to lead you to a successful operation. But when we overarching go, hey, what happened here? How did I get to this point? And then it's because tried to keep it simple. Keep it simple. Simplify that operation. Don't get tricked, and you're probably going to be successful if you've gone out and practiced it.
Mm-hmm. I want to kind of tie that together. It's the same operation, the same SOG, regardless of the roof. If it is a flat roof, because of the possible changes, we come up on a corner, we sound out so that everybody can get off into that corner. We do that inspection cut out of the path of travel. We determine all those things Mark said: fire, smoke conditions of the immediate area,
yeah,
construction type, direction, travel, height of the construction on center spacing, decking thickness, type, right? Is there a membrane thickness, type? And then we pick our path. We're doing those diagnostics. The one thing that we must process and keep in mind, and this goes for any type of roof, but it's definitely on steroids or more of a concern for me on a pre-engineered roof system, is on that flat system, where are these significant dead loads? And in relation to the direction of that construction and the span, it is the distance it is spanning. I got to know that. We got to pay attention to that. And that is all something where it goes back to the with the construction, against construction, and making sure walls are laddered, escape routes. We threw 2 off our roof, but there's 4 sides to a building. So where do we have everything laddered? Like, we got to tie all this together. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's something I'm really paying attention to. What are the loads? Where are they in relation to where I'm cutting? And should I commit past those loads? Because I'm so hell-bent on cutting the fire, but say it's an open shoe store. And so should I commit past that HVAC to cut the fire when I could accomplish the same thing just short of it, which is my escape route behind me? I don't want to have to pass back through a bearing wall and an HVAC unit to get off the roof, when I could have just stopped short of the HVAC and accomplished the same thing for the engine. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah. 100%. Anything else on this basic op you guys want to touch on?
Just one last thing, and that is, let's go back and talk about what we talk about positioning and apparatuses. Remember, when you're second due, please support what's going on already. Please remember that. We're talking about ladders, primary, secondary, but think about that same. You're another truck, you come in, support what's already going on there. You can do whatever assignment is given to you, but your first thought should be, I've got this $2 million apparatus out here that has this bitchin' aerial ladder, and at a minimum, you should support what's going on there. And that is another ladder at a minimum, 1, but better than that, if you're a good, well-oiled company, those guys are going to get off with that same thought process and get another ground ladder up. Now you got 4. Even if you don't approach the roof, you've just given these guys more places to get off that roof and more places possibly to go, hey, we need everybody off at the same time, right? It's building on, hey, just because you're not first doesn't mean you can't support. That's the thing.
Regardless of your assignment, right, Mark? I mean,
yes, 100%, right?
Can catch up.
Yeah, and that's my sticking point. And I'm getting out in the weeds of this, but that's when these chiefs are telling you, hey, hold up. Everything is on a clock. Keep that in mind. It's a clock, right? It's ticking away as we keep guys, hey, hold up at the corner. And then, hey, engine so-and-so, come on in. And that may be the engine that goes in there and takes that spot so that truck can't support what's already happening on the roof. So hopefully chief officers and you have an open mind and you can go, you know what? I can look past my gold and I am the guy that's in power here, and let these guys empower themselves to do the right thing.
I would, Cam, before we shut it down I know we're getting close to that, I would just like to talk about and pay for guys to start looking out and watch that each of these construction types, they behave differently under fire because of how they're put together. And I'm really what I'm really hitting on, and I'm not talking about some departments call a steel welded angle iron steel truss. They categorize that as pre-engineered. Yeah, it is, but it's not the same in terms of behavior, in terms of time. That, the main risk with that is elongation from heat. And like Mark said, anytime steel gets heated, if we cool it, it regains strength. That said, I'm talking about those, hybrid open web truss systems. There's a myriad of them. All wood gusset plate truss, parallel core truss systems, open web, and those eye joists. Each one of those behave differently because of how they're put together. And the one that really will get you, any roof will get you if you got your head up your ass, and you don't have an operation. But the one that will really get you, man, is that eye joist roof. That is a trap door truss joist system. It is. I coined it a trap door because I had seen fire and we had a near miss. We had a guy go through the roof because he didn't do proper sounding. Again, could have done that and that would have fixed this problem. But because there was no concentrated loads in this area of this flat roof, and he was the officer not doing his own due diligence, he went and wandered off as his guys were cutting and opening up the roof. Well, he went and wandered, and he just happened to go over the top, unbeknownst to him, over the top of a land beam into the common area, and it looked sound. It looked completely sound. And the minute they put weight on it, it was gone. He went in. And that system, again, it's a solid stem. It's not a web. It's a stem of OSB, which is put together with wood and glue. Highly flammable. As anyone knows, you go a flashover chamber or whatever. I guess we're not supposed to use OSB, but anybody who's seen OSB burns, it burns quite a bit different than plywood. So now you got a larger piece of lumber. I'll call it lumber, but even that is pre-engineered. That top and bottom cord is thicker than that stem. So what happens is the fire burns that stem away, creates a cavity or a void, but you still have continuity with top and bottom cord. So it gives the appearance, when there's no load, of stable roof. I'm just reiterating sound, because if you don't, that one will damn sure get you. Yeah. Versus open web, as the bottom cord burns away, you're going to lose that trust. I don't worry too much about top cords burning away or cutting through on that roof. It's the decking does its job. It all lends itself to keeping that compressive force stable. It's that tensile member that I want to, once that goes, okay, we can't be in that area. Especially if there's load. That hybrid, that wood and top and bottom cord with steel crimped bar in between, every connection point is where those fail. Every connection point, once the wood gets weakened. And so you have the systematic boom, 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 and it kind of dominoes down that truss. Not throughout the whole roof. Domino effect of the whole roof. Never seen that.
Yeah.
Never seen it.
Yeah.
But along that same system or that same truss itself, absolutely, you shouldn't be on it.
Yeah.
So when you're starting to be concerned with fire weakening a system, just go back to your escape route a couple against construction, or whichever way that ends up, go against construction. Don't run from the truss with it. That's like when that crane collapsed in Southern Nevada. The guy was running with it. All you had to do is take 2 steps to this way or this way, and he wouldn't have got smashed. It's the same concept. Go this way. Go against construction.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's something that's really kind of played a role. It definitely played a role with that captain who went in on that roof. There were bad habits there. Don't get me wrong. All of this shit's avoidable. If you look at any line of duty death, for the most part, when it comes to a guy falling through the truss roof or a roof period, there's things that didn't happen that should have. It's control. We can control it.
Yeah. It brings up to me one other thing that we could talk about, which we didn't, I don't think, is that operation of putting in that head cut and cutting back and extending. When I put in that head cut, that's probably in most instances the furthest I'll ever be out on the roof. And the rest of the time, I'm working back towards my escape route and towards my safety zone. So as the fire progresses, I'm progressing back and back to a safer area.
Right. And with pre-engineered stuff and roofs, namely, commercial flat with a main beam with a system linking up to a main, my head cut is going to be the farthest I reach out, but the cut's going to be linear. I am relegated to only doing against construction cuts.
Yeah, that's what the construction.
In the immediate area near the fire, right? So that's also something you got to take and consider that comes with the territory of pre-engineered systems.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Very good.
Anything else you guys want to touch on today? We're kind of getting over that hour, about hour 15 right now, I think. As far as
I'm spent.
leading in a lightweight. Yeah, I hope that all made sense to people about, hey, how this is beneficial in all roof ops, but especially when it comes in a lightweight, how all these things play a critical.
I would say, Mark, we didn't really get into panelized. I don't know that that's a show unto itself, but it's certainly a subtopic of this conversation.
Okay. I would say, the next one that we're going to do is, I think it just leads into the next thing. And that is, how does all the stuff that we just talked about lead itself into that conventional roof operation, right? It's one of the same, but maybe we can start that class off with, hey, let's talk about panelize and that animal and why it's a little different than what you're talking about, especially on that linear cut and how you perform that, right? Hey, once I get on that beam, I'm not leaving that beam, right? So that I can't go out and go, hey, I'm going to extend within the bay. Can't do that. Mm-hmm. So now I know it's going to go across, so say. So
I would say that between, right? I mean, if it's lamb beams for the main and the purlin versus maybe the purlins are open web parallel cord doubled up.
Yes.
That's the difference with the lightweight versus that traditional panelizer where we're going to just on the main.
That's what I'm saying. Well, there's animals within that system that, like everything else, I realize this, guys, it's about money. That's all it is. It's about money, right? So if I'm going to use a 4x8 as a purlin versus two open web beams locked up to each other, it's cheaper for me to do that. It is. And I'm doing this giant thing, and this thing's all prefabricated in the factory. All the engineering has been done. They just bail it out. It's a erector set at that point. Hey, square this, do that, and it's all about the cost. They never factor in the fire load. They just don't. That's not part of their equation.
Yeah. We see oftentimes here, you'll have that traditional lamb beam purlin, and it'll only go 12-ish feet or something before it needs an upright, a column. Whereas when they got this one spot, I keep thinking of where we would take our gear to get, rehabbed, that the purlins on that panelized system are open web parallel cord trusses, and they go every bit of 70 feet before there's a main. 70 feet. I'm not shitting you.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And that's the difference between truss systems and solid dimensional lumber.
Yeah. And like you said, so I mean, you say it's a animal unto itself, but you know what I would say? I hate to say this, and I'm putting it in a class all its own, but get into your district. Get in your district. Pre-plan as much as you can. I get it. You can't get into everyone, but man, those are the oddballs for us and where I'm at, right? And I say that I'm not at home. There's nothing other than I got to be under the wrath of what happened to my wife when I don't do the right thing. When you're back in the field and you guys are going to these fires, is if you don't get out there and go, which one of these things are a legacy, for lack of something better, panelized roof, all wooden members, understand the difference. Understand that wooden one's going to be a lot more bomb-proof than that pre-engineered one. Come on, think about it, right? And that's a matter of you guys getting out there and doing that. It's pre-fire planning. It's looking when you get a rescue run. Hey, let's take a second and get up in this attic space into these mini malls. I had one when I made AO. I would have never looked at the building across the street from the fire station and said it was a panelized roof. Get it there? Legacy panelized roof on a mini mall, 2-story. Shit. I would have never guessed that, right? I would have went in there and went, hey, conventional construction operation. Okay, we got up in there. Just one day I go, hey, let me crawl up in here. I look up and I go, what the hell was this? Right? And an old area of Los Angeles, and the mini mall is a 2-story, and it had been in for 40 plus years. And it's like, It didn't fit what I saw with my eyes. My eyes were lying to me. I would have made a mistake on that roof.
Just as a reminder, everybody, you got specific questions or about a topic you want us to hit on and or something we talked about that you may still be confused on, just hit us up, DM, email, the social media, or the West Coast Offense at gmail.com. Cam, this is up on all the platforms.
Yep, up on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast. It'll be up on all of them.
And we don't do it very often, but for the right price, we'll still do some classes, folks. There's always that. Mark's on a fixed income and he needs a little, supplementation at times.
I'm going to go into loan sharking. I'll fix that problem real quick.
Hey, thanks, guys. Any final thoughts?
It's dynamic. That's right. What I will say, it's dynamic. You just, it's nothing. No, none of us are like Colin said at the beginning, the legend or the goat. It's not. It's what you take upon yourself as an individual to make yourself a good truckman, good engine man, and overall a good fireman. It's a lot of shit to remember. And I said this a long time ago in this whole thing. Who has to have the most plays? That firefighter. He's got to have the most plays, man. Keep that in mind. Officers, operators, put yourself in that guy's shoes and ask, hey, what do we ask these guys to do? And remember, it's a lot of shit. Simplify it for them.
Yeah.
Now I'm just going to end with vet your sources with the given topic. There is no one person or agency that's outstanding at everything. And know when someone's talking out of their ass because they ain't done it or they don't have that type of construction.
Yep. Good words. Hey, thanks again for coming. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and hey, be on the lookout for future episodes popping up. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.